If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and give a like. As China has advanced and caught up with the most advanced economies, its future needs have become less clear. American economic analyst Milton Ezratty believes that people and companies in China, and indeed in business communities around the world, have eagerly embraced Beijing's promises to formulate policies that will restore the country's economic momentum. However, these promises are often followed by disappointment. It is beginning to seem as if the Chinese leadership simply does not know what to do. This conclusion is quite reasonable, because the economic and financial turmoil facing China has largely been the result of ill-considered policies that predate the COVID-19 pandemic. Ezratty, a research associate at the Center for Human Capital Studies at the University of Buffalo, which specializes in research activities, said in a report published by the American magazine, The National Interest, that the Western media has praised China's economy. Not long ago, it was common to read that China's economy would soon overtake that of the United States, according to the German news agency, dpa. Ezratty added that comments often praised the effectiveness, foresight, and predictability of China's top-down planning, and some suggested that it might be superior to the chaos of democratic practice and market-based approaches. The praise for the predictability of Chinese central planning has often been misplaced. Since modern China began as a developing economy that had been badly torn apart by war, economic planners had plenty of time to determine where the country should emphasize it. All they needed to do was look to the developed world, and they could see that building new roads, connecting railways, building port facilities, housing, power plants, and the like would yield huge growth dividends, and they did. Citizens rose from the quagmire of abject poverty and became richer. As China advanced and caught up with more advanced economies, its future needs became less clear. China's central planners lost their model and increasingly made mistakes. The new reality of economic life for China became clear in the first decade of the 21st century. At that time, authorities had been encouraging residential construction for some time. But as China transitioned from a housing-poor economy to one with an abundance of housing, planners made the mistake of keeping these policies in place. Real estate development rose to an unsustainable 30% of China's economy. When Beijing finally woke up to the problem, it made a second mistake. In 2019 to 2020, Beijing abruptly removed all previous housing subsidies. The decision was reasonable, but the sudden move caused problems, catching both developers and local governments off guard, leaving them no time to adjust. In 2021, developers began failing, and local governments began reporting difficulties meeting their financial obligations, and in some cases, even providing basic public services. That year, things in China's financial sector began to resemble those in the United States during the 2008 global financial crisis. Instead of moving aggressively to stop the spread of financial failure, the authorities in Beijing made another mistake. They did nothing, as if nothing had gone wrong. In short order, the economy lost support for Chinese construction and consumer activity. As the economy slowed, China's private sector rethought its expansion and hiring plans, and yet the authorities did nothing. In a simultaneous mistake, the authorities exacerbated all this pressure. Just as the rest of the world was reopening its borders after the COVID-19 pandemic, Beijing imposed a zero-COVID policy. The lockdowns and quarantines that followed disrupted workers' incomes and gave consumers another reason to limit spending. While talk of a Chinese economic collapse has been the subject of praise and envy for years, there are doubts that such a collapse will happen. China has a large economy that can certainly survive the many mistakes made here. However, the Chinese victories that Western media have previously talked about are already a long way off. Ezratty concluded his report by saying that even adequate growth seems unlikely. If Beijing claims that the economy has achieved its 2024 target of 5% real growth, the announcement should be read with skepticism, as such growth will take a long time to return, if it is at all. Watermark, UKW